being from the media, we're usually on the other side. So, being this side is a little jittery, but I take on the challenge. So, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and all the industry heads. It's really an honor to be here at the OPPI Annual Day celebration to share my views, especially before many of my mentors, because I see many of them out here, and many of them who actually helped me learn the ropes of the sector. Now, before I begin, in terms of the speaker lineup, I'm conscious that I'm placed between, if I take the cricket analogy, between Sehwag and Tendulkar, and then we still have Dhoni or Sky in the wings, that is Surya Kumar Yadav. I mean, that's the kind of lineup. So I'll keep it brief. Now, as all of you know, perception is a very complex cognitive process. Thoughts, beliefs, opinions, awareness can all contribute to that. And in today's world, if you kind of add the influence of social media to the mix, it can swing things sharply or even dangerously, as many of you would know. Just to give you a sense of the power of social media, online platforms experienced a tsunami of user activity related to COVID-19. And you won't believe it, but there were a staggering 1 billion plus mentions globally from just November 2019 to May 2020, and this is IQVIA data. The closest to such COVID-19 linked conversation volumes over the past decade, and that too by a huge differential, was perhaps in 2014 with the ALS Ice Bucket Challenge. Some of you may remember that, which had just 5 million conversations. And then there were just an estimated 1 million conversations pertaining to MERS, and that is again way back in 2014-15. So a lot of activity during COVID. And social media was kind of, ablaze with everything that you need. That said, let me begin by borrowing a line from the Caliber Global Pharma study on perceptions of the industry, which said that the story of the global pharmaceutical sector's reputation is one of a close yet stormy relationship between companies and society. Now, the storm is perhaps much more intense, with a bit of thunder and lightning as well when it comes to the media, more so in this part of the world. In fact, the Caliber study notes how pharma, or even companies per se, are perceived differently in different countries. And surprise, surprise, the top trust and like scores as a measurement of corporate reputation come from countries like Brazil and China. The scores are average in the US and the UK. And guess what? They are really low in Denmark and Switzerland. Apparently, the wealthier the country, its people view the pharma sector less favorably. One hypothesis suggested in the study was that in wealthier countries with better healthcare, medical needs of people are addressed by the national healthcare system through various components. I mean, as you know, care providers, the payers, the regulatory infrastructure is far more robust. And therefore, patients may be less aware of the pharma companies behind these novel and innovative therapies. So therein possibly lies an opportunity for industry for greater engagement. But that data point is really not surprising either. As we all know, when we went through COVID, the highest trust in vaccines during the pandemic came from the developing world. I mean, you had Bangladesh, Ethiopia, and them having far greater trust than Europe. In terms of people who actually believed vaccines were safe, again, those percentages were far higher in Asia compared with Europe, though the reasons perhaps are manifold and complex. Now, if we move more widely to India, most of the public and media perceptions of global pharma and the industry in general, as you can imagine, I better pause here a bit, are intertwined and shaped by notions around the numerous P's: pricing, patents, profits, and practices. While the newer pricing approaches, whether we are talking of tiered pricing, India-specific pricing, or then outcomes-based pricing, have helped nuance perceptions. In general, when the first two P's affect or is perceived to affect the other critical P, that is the patient, in the equation, then the media will chase that story, and it will chase it hard. As we saw in the case of insulin prices in the US. Now, whether it was the intermediary or whatever it is, that is one area that the media will keep its eye on. And let's not forget, health is a very highly emotive subject, and things can amplify rapidly, especially in a largely self-pay market like India. Many of you would probably recall the remdesivir saga during the height of COVID. I mean, it was all over the place. Interestingly, we have some physicians in the audience as well, I guess. The Caliper study also said that HCPs across markets, and these are the developed markets, UK, US, Germany, Spain, they flagged up making treatments more affordable as a key factor to improving the image of industry. If you take the patents bit, that's another kind of tricky area to be speaking about, but there have been some landmark or controversial patent decisions in India over the recent past. One set of stakeholders may perceive and portray this as a big win for patents, for patients and access. Access everybody knows is multifaceted. While the global industry may perhaps at times construe this as a setback to effective patent protection. Now, the media generally tries to put the story with all its various dimensions, but as we've seen in the age of social media and WhatsApp University and news nuggets, people mainly consume the headline and a few paras. If we go back to the 60s, the average reading time in the US was 18 minutes. And apparently now with COVID, the reading time has gone up. But I'm not sure if everybody goes through the entire 18 paragraphs in most stories. So these are some of the long-running perception issues that pharma has had to deal with. But it isn't as if the industry hasn't done fantastic things to actually contribute and improve the health of people globally. And the pandemic actually presented a huge opportunity for industry to reset its reputation, as one big pharma CEO put it, and along with that, many perceptions. The industry's response in delivering vaccines in record time, unprecedented collaboration across the broader ecosystem, including with logistics players, government machinery, public health, and even military infrastructure. All of this played out really well. Setting up the supply chain for COVID-19 vaccines took just 6 months in some cases, which is roughly 3x the speed if you consider the typical 18-month pre-COVID-19 timeline. I don't need to tell you this. So all of that is a significant kind of impact on public perception. There have been surveys that suggest a positive shift in how the industry has been valued. But to be honest, by and large, from the media's vantage point, it's been like a pendulum. It swings from one end to the other. COVID undoubtedly saw lots of appreciation for industry. It made clinical trials, mRNA vaccines, part of common dinner table conversations, whether you're in Cuff Parade or in Virar. Everybody knew mRNA vaccines. And Ipsos data has shown increases among the public who agree that pharmaceutical companies are reliable, they keep their promises, do what they do with the best of intentions, and behave responsibly. In terms of keeping their promises, the data statistics was 30% in 2018 and went up to 37% in 2021. But sorry to to play the spoiler, we did have the issue of vaccine inequity, the WTO IP waiver issue, then the tsunami of fake and real news around efficacy of vaccines and treatments, and some concerns around data transparency. And then things get just so compounded with all the social media punditry that we see every time. And the pendulum swings the other way. So while there have been impressive steps forward in terms of perception of industry, this pendulum just continues to move. And pharma may want to take some steps to sustain this positive or upward momentum. I'd like to end by saying perceptions can be powerful. They can also be powerfully wrong, but they aren't always set in stone. And with studies suggesting that perception levels seem to decrease with age, that is, paradoxically, it's the older folk who are more skeptical, while Gen X, Y, Z are more favorably disposed to the pharma sector. So it is probably right, and probably presents a huge opportunity for industry to kind of cleanse the doors of any wrong perception early on. Thank you so much.